Namaskar, I'm Assistant Professor Kritika Dev from LJ School of Law, and today we'll be dealing with another very interesting topic of Indian Penal Code, that is criminal force. Now, what actually is criminal force and what are the ingredients and what are the basic elements which are involved in it, we'll see in today's session. Criminal force is defined under Section 350 of Indian Penal Code. But before criminal force, there is a term force, right? In order to make force a criminal force, what are the ingredients which are involved in it, and what makes a, a, a matter or a term force into a criminal force, that we will see today. So here is the definition of force. Force is being defined under section 349 of Indian Penal Code. Let's quickly read what the section says. A person is said to use force to another if he causes motion, change in motion, or cessation of motion to that person, or if he causes to any substance such motion or change of motion or cessation of motion as brings that substance into the contact with any part of that other's anything so situated that such contact affects that other's sense of feeling. Now here, the terms at which we need to bring our notice or on which we need to focus is, or there are three. The first one is motion. Now let's take an example. What if you just push somebody, right? You just push somebody, harder, slow, that doesn't matter. But you brought your body into the contact of the body of that other person. You caused motion, right? Or change in motion. For say somebody was running and you suddenly just pushed that person or just made him to change his path. That was the change in motion. Or what if somebody was moving and running fast, or he was running very uh, uh, quickly, or the motion was very fast and he was running towards you and you suddenly stopped that person, so you made that motion stop. So in these three situations, you have used criminal force. Criminal force does not only mean that you slapped somebody or you actually dumped somebody somewhere. Only that does not mean criminal force. Change in the motion and even stopping that motion also leads to force. So here with this, let's move on to the other portion of the section. Now, what are these things? Provision has been given. Now, the example that I've quoted is talking about your body. Like you're pushing your body, or you're pushing somebody else's body. Sorry, you're pushing somebody else's body with your own bodily power. Either you're making him to change his path or stopping him in his motion, or maybe just pushing that person. So that is by your own bodily power, in which you're using your bodily power. Now, as you can see, the second element here is about disposing any substance, right? Now, for say you have a hot mug of water in your hand. So that is a substance. That hot mug of water is a substance. Now suddenly you throw that water and that water comes into the contact of that person. So even this amounts to force. Yes, you might take a plea that, I did not touch that person at all. Or maybe that water did not cause any harm. So what it is, it does not amount to anything. Nothing happened. But here, that warm water, that was a substance which came into the contact of the body of that other person. Then that is the substance coming into contact of that body, right? That is the second element. Now let's move on to the third element. The third element says by inducing any animal to move or to change its motion. Now I guess everything like this will get clear with these two pictures. The first one, as I said, maybe you're throwing water, or maybe splashing water when somebody drives, and suddenly you see, somebody driving in a very high speed and you get all the water on your body, right? So that is disposing of any substance. So that is force, right? That is force which is there. Let me be very clear here. Right now we are just talking about force. We will see what criminal force is, right? So this is force. And then the third element, as we were seeing, is by inducing any animal to change its motion. Now, as you can see here, all the dogs have been tied up, right? Now suddenly you just open that very thing by which they have been tied. So here you are actually making that person move. Or let me give you one more example. You just hold a biscuit, a dog biscuit in your hand, trying to just to call that animal or to have that very biscuit. Now, as soon as that dog, if he's not tied to any tree or any pole, he's just simply sitting in a park or whatever, and his master is not there around, and you suddenly take a biscuit and you ask that very dog to just follow you. So, as soon as the dog starts following you, that also amounts to criminal force. Yes, strange, but yes, it does amount to criminal force. Sorry, it does amount to force. Now, as I said, we will see what amounts to criminal force, what makes or what are the element which makes a force into criminal force, right? So here let's move on to the very important slide. When does force become criminal force? That was the definition, but as we have seen in the definition was very clear, but these are the elements which makes force into criminal force. Very true. Okay, so the very first thing is, when we read the definition of force, we did not see any element of intention. We did not see anything written like without that person's consent, right? Or anything that he had committed force in order to commit a crime. Nothing like that was written under the section. Under section 349, nothing like that was written. But here, under section 350, you will see things are written which makes criminal force, or sorry, which makes force a criminal force. These two terms, even sometimes I tend to pronounce wrongly. Pardon me for that. So here, intention. Now the term intention, in the 3 or 4 5 examples that we have seen, if the person had the intention, right? What intention? Intention to commit an offense or to cause any injury. Very simple. When it comes to injury, we can simply make out, okay, something happened or some crime must have been committed. But not only injury, comma में आप देख सकते हैं that in the clause B, there is one more thing written, fear or annoyance. Yes, cause injury, fear or annoyance. So if somebody with the intention, and of course, as you can see in point 2, without that person's consent. Now, if a person consents that you take my dog out, whatever intention you have, but you had the permission of the master. So that's all right. What if somebody just asks you that, you just stop me when I come running towards you, you just stop me so that I can calculate something. Maybe he was an athlete. So if you do it with the consent of the other person, or uh, uh, with the consent of the other person, that does not amount to criminal force. But when you have all these elements, the first one, you had the intention to do so. That wasn't by mistake, like, oops, I did not know that your dog was following me. You had the intention. And of course, when it comes to intention under IPC, burden of proof is there, right? It will be there on you to prove that you had no intention. So, of course, we are just reading the elements here. So, here is the element is that you had the intention, and it was without the consent of the other person, and it was either to commit an offense, or here or is being mentioned, either it was committed or it was being done from you in order to commit an offense, or injury, fear or annoyance. So these are the or options. The first one is in order to commit an offense, or to commit or to cause injury, or to cause fear, or to annoy that person. right? So when it comes to these 4 points, they are, we can see or between them. So any of them, if any of these elements are present, then it will be criminal force. And these two elements are static, intention, and without the consent of the other party, right? So when these things are there, then force becomes criminal force, right? Then it is, you can easily say that no, this is criminal force because there was intention and because it was without that person's consent, and it caused annoyance. Now, let me give you one more example. First, say I'm just sitting and suddenly somebody comes and just tries to hoe me, and suddenly I get annoyed, like what is this, right? Or suddenly somebody pulls my chair or tries to pull up my chair. Now it annoys me, right? So firstly he came into contact with my chair. There itself the criminal force element is there. He had the intention. Of course, I did not ask that person to pull the chair, which means there was no consent from my side. And of course, as soon as that person pulled my chair and I was about to sit, though I did not fall, take that very point, I did not fall, but I got annoyed by that very gesture. So that will amount to criminal force, and that will be a criminal force. So I guess you must be clear with the concept of force and criminal force, and when does force becomes criminal force, right? So here, this is it. And now let's see the punishment. So as we can see here, the punishment is being given that it may extend to 3 months. So whenever extend to 3 months or extend to any period of time is written, which means that that is the maximum punishment, which means 3 year, 3 months is the maximum punishment. Minimum could be any, maybe a day, maybe a couple of days, whatever. But the maximum will be 3 months or fine, right? Which may extend to 500 rupees. So or element is there. So whether there could be punishment, I mean imprisonment, or fine, or both, right? So here is the punishment of criminal force. And with this, let's, so I guess everything is clear. And with this, let's end up the session here. And it was very nice to have students like you. Keep studying and keep motivating yourself, keep revising so that it will be good for you. So before leaving, let's have a look at the some of the exceptions also, right? You keep on reading, but let's see the exceptions also. Now the exception says, what if it was, when the person used criminal force, it was out of grave and sudden provocation. Like somebody provoked me to use criminal force. Like somebody just pushed me first, gave me sudden provocation, and then as an answer, I used criminal force, right? Then I will not be taken as the offender because I was being provoked by that very party. The party who gave me the sudden provocation, I used criminal force against that very person. Then I will be saved from this section. Or the second exception says that if a person is using criminal force in obedience of the law. Now, if you see a police inspector coming and suddenly catching a criminal, right, getting hold of a criminal, now there we can say that he used criminal force and how he stopped the motion of the person, but he was doing so in obedience of the law. Then he will be saved from this very section and will be saved from the punishment, of course. And if the third one, if the force is being used in the exercise of private defense, right? I just saw somebody coming and I just that person was about to hit me, so I just stopped that person and hit him back. Or I saw some person was about to stop me when I was running, so I did not know, or I just thought that that person might do anything or might cause injury, so in return I just pushed that very person. So I acted in private defense because that person was trying to stop me, and of course, I need to save myself. So I acted or I used private defense. So there also I will be protected under this section. But as we discussed the very first point, grave and sudden provocation. Now that will be decided by the court whether that provocation was sufficient in nature to make you use criminal force, right? If the court feels that no, that wasn't a sufficient sudden provocation because of which you used criminal force, then I will not be protected. But yes, if it is sufficient in nature in order to give or in order to provoke me, then that is all right. But that is completely up to the court to decide whether it was sufficient in nature or not. So, with this, you can say we are not only done with the section, we are even done with the exceptions of it. And I guess you must be completely clear with whatever we have gone through with section 349 force, with section 350, which talks about the criminal force, the punishment, the exceptions. So, with this, let's end the lecture. Have a good day and keep studying. And yeah, keep studying, keep your books open, as I always say. Thank you.